I remember the last time we spoke, you were, I think, in the final days of finishing building the studio in your garden.
Oh, right, yeah.
What role did that space play in this album?
It didn't play a big role in the writing, but it played a bigger space in the kind of like the production, that sort of thing. But also just like having a break from writing in the middle of a record can be a really good thing. It gives you that like nice bit of kind of perspective and distance, particularly if you're like producing and writing the album yourself. Yeah.
Where was the record at when you started building the space then?
It was pretty much written. I think I knew roughly how it was all going to sound, and I just had to sort of finish off the production and add and take away. Yeah.
It feels to me as well as there's almost something quite symbolic about building the space that you create from with your bare hands.
Definitely.
And actually putting it together, yeah.
Definitely, like just watching like how nails like spark when you hit them with a hammer, and the way they like twang as they go in. It was very satisfying, and I think because I spent like 10 years in London where there was like no space. You were like working in a spare room or a studio share or like, and it was just felt like it sort of became quite political to me that like choosing to leave and build my own space felt like kind of like taking charge of my own creativity.
Literally
again.
taking control.
Literally, yeah. Rather than paying like hundreds of quid a month for a room with no soundproofing that you can only use like after 5 o'clock because there's an office next door and they get cross at you.
I heard you nickname the space the Coffin as well.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see that dark sense of humour on this album, do you think?
Everywhere. I think like dark sense of humour is everywhere. It's like my brother always says, well, if we're not laughing, we're crying, and I'm like, yeah. So I think you have to have a touch of gallows humour, particularly in this day and age.
Just to get by.
Yeah, exactly.
It's almost as well, I mean, the story that you took the title from, the avalanche, with someone gets buried by an avalanche and then another avalanche unburies them. Mm-hmm. That in itself, it almost feels like, you're baking that dark sense of humour into the DNA. Mm-hmm. In terms of that idea of what can destroy us can also save us, could that be emblematic of your return home?
Yeah, maybe. And I think maybe that's sort of what I was... Maybe it was more that me returning home was me deciding to take my own advice, which was kind of about creating light and trying to let it in where you can, and sort of not relying too much on things just happening to make you satisfied. It's sort of very active DIY kind of, which is how a lot of my work is created anyway. It's just make something out of what you've got. And like, yeah, I passed the music shop the other day that had like just a mandolin and a little tape recorder in the front, and I was like, if I made a record just on the mandolin with that tape recorder, I'd be on Pitchfork for sure.
One of the other things I read about this album is that you wanted it to convey motion. And one of the ways that I got from that is obviously, on the surface level, the way that you go through all these different sounds. How else do you see your approach to convey motion, and what other aspects do you do that through, do you think?
I mean, in a technical sense, I used a lot of swing. So and instead of the beats being very rigid, I left in a lot of sway and kind of that more human. Because obviously I make a lot of stuff on computers, so it can come across, it's very digital if you like heavily quantize it. So I like left in swing and I left in mistakes and I didn't over tighten everything. So they just had that flow, and I think that's sort of what I'm talking about, really.
Do you notice the difference in songs that begin life on the computer, like you're saying, and songs that begin life on a natural instrument?
Yeah.
What would you say that difference is?
I'd say my computer songs tend to be... It's quite difficult. I feel like if I start with a production idea or a beat or a synth line, that led to songs like that EP with like California Screaming and Whoosh on, which are sort of more like pop songs, but then you've got a song like Navigator, which was clearly written like on the guitar, and a lot more of Pity Party was written on guitar first. But I feel like once I've got that song as a writer, production-wise, I struggle to sort of be experimental because I always feel like I'm sort of pulling away from what it is, which is a song. So with the Avalanche, a lot more of it started with bass and drums, and I built from there, a bit more like you would with I guess with a band in a studio. Yeah, so I think, yes, yeah.
One of the aspects in this record that it feels like you're really experimenting with and kind of pushing further than you've gone before is what you're doing with your voice, and the way that you treat it, and the way that you use your vocal delivery in a manner of different fashions. Which of the songs in this album challenged you most from a vocal delivery point of view?
I mean, definitely Babies, because it's got a bit of spoken word, and when
It's got a punch to it, though.
Yeah, and it's supposed to. I think people assume that if you are a good singer, then you must sing like nice, and I was sort of more keen to show that maybe being a good singer is like being able to take on character and being able to bring in different kind of attitudes. And yeah, so but when I was doing the spoken section for that, like originally I did it in like an incredibly hammy American accent, and I was like, I can't get away with that. I thought about getting an actor in to like do it, but then I was like, that sort of seems a shame. So I had to really find my voice in that, and to be able to deliver it with a swagger and a character, but not feel like I was sort of like over-egging the pudding. That was challenging. And then I've got like a mid-late in Drive where it's like a bit of a rap section. But
I've got that in my notes, hip-hop cadence to that point. Yeah.
And I just wanted to feel like that slight sense of embarrassment with it. And I think, I achieved that.
How do you think making this album changed your relationship to your voice overall, and the way that you kind of perceive it?
I think it was sort of like me and my voice like falling in love again, really. Like, I did a lot of backing vocal work, and when you're being trained in that way, like, you do have to do away a little bit with sort of how you naturally go into singing, and then with Pity Party, I think I felt a lot of pressure to be a female vocalist that sang with tonality and accuracy, and actually I thought, well, it'd be kind of punk rock to just sing like with feeling and with my brain a little bit, I guess, which is great. It's made me really love singing again, because I don't worry about it too much. I'm just like, if it comes out all weird, like that's just the gig, you know, like that's cool.
One of the other songs I wanted to talk about is Saturation, where I read...
It's Saturated.
Saturate, sorry.
That's okay.
Before we did that, I was thinking in my head, is it Saturation or Saturate? I can't quite... It's one of the
GCSE biology.
The mantis shrimp, my favourite animal, that has 12 different colour receptors, and obviously we only have 3, and you spoke about that in relation to the way that we all perceive the world differently.
Yeah.
How do you think the way that you perceive the world has changed over the course of making this record?
That's really interesting, because I think when we were deprived of like stimulation from other people IRL, I think like I feel like you lose some sense of your character, because so much of your personality and character is in response to stimuli in the world. So how you behave when you see someone who's fallen over in the street, or whatever existential kind of situation. So when we were just in our homes, I think that we became a very kind of narrowed down version of ourselves, depending on who also you were living with, and the person that you are to or with them. But since they're coming back on tour, like, I feel like, I don't know, really up for the world, and really like hyper observational, and I'm not sure I'm answering your question, but that's just what it inspired in me.
Well, that's really interesting, what in there about how so much of us is composed of the way that we react and we respond to other people and other things in the world. How do you see that carrying into your music and the way that your voice is expressed in that domain?
I think that I'm not interested so much in providing opinion or even so much like story or anecdote. I was interested in questions and thoughts and perspectives, and sort of trying to, like, allowing myself to sort of not have a straight down the line kind of idea about what the song is about or whatever. Like, it's like a kind of more broad. I think that's probably why that sort of characters thing came in, because it felt like I could explore outside of trying to tell people who I am, which is I guess you're doing it anyway, but it's not like, it wasn't the modus operandi. I've never said that before in my life. Is that a thing? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Wicked.
Cheers.
Nice one. That was lovely.
Yeah, it was great.